In the world of American coinage, few series have carried as much historical weight, cultural symbolism, and enduring presence in the hands of everyday people as the Jefferson nickel. And when we focus our attention on the 1971 Jefferson nickel, we open the door not only to a coin minted in the millions, but to an era of American history, a reflection of political, social, and economic changes, and the continuation of one of the most iconic designs ever to grace United States coinage. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the long-running Buffalo nickel, and chosen through a public design competition. Featured on its obverse the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, America's third president, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and an enduring figure of American democracy, and on the reverse his architectural masterpiece, Monticello, the plantation home he designed and built in Virginia. The coin was sculpted by Felix Schlag, whose work, though modified for practicality, became a lasting tribute to both Jefferson and classical architecture, and for more than 3 decades. By the time 1971, the design had already become one of the most familiar faces of American currency. The year 1971 itself was a turning point in American history. It was the year when the United States officially ended the direct convertibility of the dollar into gold, closing the chapter on the Bretton Woods system and ushering in the era of fiat currency. It was also a year of cultural upheaval as the Vietnam War raged on. Social movements pressed forward with demands for civil rights, equality, and environmental reform, and the economy showed signs of stress, with inflation beginning to mount. In this backdrop, the U.S. Mint continued its steady production of coins to meet the nation's demands for commerce. Among those coins, the 1971 Jefferson nickel was struck in vast numbers at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with proof issues coming from San Francisco. The Philadelphia Mint in 1971 produced over 316 million nickels, while the Denver Mint struck more than 315 million, creating a combined circulation mintage that exceeded 630 million coins, an extraordinary figure that speaks to the heavy use of the nickel denomination in everyday American life. The San Francisco Mint, meanwhile, issued proof coins specially made for collectors, with mirror-like finishes and crisp details, intended not for circulation, but for numismatic appreciation. In terms of composition, the 1971 Jefferson nickel continued the post-war tradition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a durable alloy that gave the coin its distinctive silver-gray appearance and resistance to wear, unlike the wartime nickels of 1942 to 1945, which contained silver. These coins were part of the standard non-precious metal issues. Looking at the design itself, the obverse portrait of Jefferson by 1971 had already been in use for more than 3 decades, and while some critics considered it outdated, others praised its simplicity and familiarity. Jefferson faces left with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1971 arranged around his bust. The reverse displays Monticello with the words E pluribus unum, Monticello 5 cents, and United States of America. This design, while criticized at times for being flat or lacking artistic dynamism, had nonetheless achieved a kind of timeless status by 1971, deeply ingrained in the American consciousness, because every schoolchild, worker, shopper, and commuter saw it in daily transactions. When considering the historical significance of the 1971 nickel, it is important to note that it belongs to an era before the major design changes that would come later. In the series, collectors often divide Jefferson nickels into pre-2004 and post-2004 categories, since the Westward Journey series introduced new portraits and reverses in honor of the Lewis and Clark expedition, but in 1971, the design remained unaltered from the Schlag original, aside from some modifications to lettering and details over the years. For numismatists, the 1971 Jefferson nickel holds a variety of points of interest. While it is common in circulated grades, due to its immense mintage, there are high-grade examples with sharp strikes and full steps on Monticello that carry premium value. The full steps designation refers to the visibility of the steps on the building's front when they are fully struck without interruption. By weak striking or die, wear a Jefferson nickel with 5 or 6 full steps, especially from 1971, can be quite rare, and commands significant collector interest. The Philadelphia and Denver issues each present challenges to collectors seeking these high-quality strikes, since both mints were notorious during this period for producing coins with weaker details and heavy die use, thus making sharply struck full-step nickels from 1971 highly desirable. Proof coins from San Francisco are a different matter. These coins, struck multiple times on specially prepared planchets with polished dies, display much sharper details and mirror-like fields. Collectors often seek them for their beauty and for completing proof sets from the era. The 1971 proof nickel does not have a silver composition, unlike the proof quarters or half dollars of earlier years, but it does remain an affordable entry point for collectors of modern proofs. Yet there are rare instances of cameo and deep cameo examples where the frosted devices contrast dramatically with the mirrored fields. These carry additional premiums in the collector market. Another layer of interest comes from the historical events of 1971 that indirectly shaped the context in which these nickels circulated. As inflation began to erode the purchasing power of the dollar, coins like the nickel became increasingly important for small transactions, vending machines, parking meters, and everyday commerce. It is worth remembering that in 1971 5 cents still held considerably more buying power than it does today, allowing for the purchase of candy, gum, newspapers, and even contributing meaningfully to bus fares and phone calls. The nickel was not simply a small piece of change, it was a workhorse coin essential to daily life across the United States. Errors and varieties of the 1971 Jefferson nickel also intrigue specialists. Examples include off-center strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, and double dies. Though not as dramatic as some error coins from other years, these anomalies can transform a common coin into a prize collectible, commanding prices many times higher than face value. The hunt for such varieties adds to the allure of the 1971 nickel and keeps collectors examining even ordinary pocket change in search of hidden treasures. The Jefferson nickel series as a whole has long been a favorite among collectors because it is both accessible and challenging. Accessible in the sense that millions were minted and circulated widely, making it possible for beginners to start collections from pocket change, and challenging because high-grade full-step examples from many dates, especially the 1950s and 1972s, are elusive and expensive. The 1971 issue fits into this narrative perfectly, abundant in lower grades yet rare in pristine conditions. The decades have passed. The 1971 Jefferson nickel remains a symbol of its time, a coin that bridges the gap between the optimism of post-war America and the challenges of the turbulent 1972. It stands as a reminder of Jefferson's enduring legacy as a statesman, philosopher, and architect, and as a reflection of the mint's commitment to producing practical, durable coins for a growing nation. Today, while most 1971 nickels still trade for only face value in circulated condition, the finest examples, whether proofs with deep cameo contrasts or business strikes with sharp full steps, tell a deeper story about craftsmanship, history, and the collector's pursuit of perfection. So, when you hold a 1971 Jefferson nickel in your hand, you are not simply holding a piece of metal worth 5 cents, you are holding a window into American history, the continuation of a design legacy that began in 1938, the symbol of Jefferson's contributions to liberty and democracy, the reflection of a nation in transition during the early 1970s, and a coin that has traveled through countless hands, from shopkeepers to children saving for candy, to bus riders feeding change into a fare box. And that is what makes the 1971 Jefferson nickel so much more than just a coin. It is a piece of the American story preserved in copper and nickel, waiting for collectors, historians, and everyday people to rediscover its value. Imagine you are holding in your hand a coin that millions of people have spent without a second thought, a simple 5-cent piece struck in 2014 with the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on its obverse, a coin that circulates through gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines, and pockets across America. But hidden within this seemingly ordinary nickel lies a story that stretches across centuries of American history. A story that connects the founding ideals of the United States with the industrial power of the modern minting process, a story that ties together Jefferson's vision of liberty with the evolution of America's coinage system, and a story that collectors, historians, and numismatists find endlessly fascinating because every single detail, from the metal composition to the mint marks to the subtle design changes, tells us something about who we are as a nation and how far we have come. When we begin to study the Jefferson nickel of 2014, we are not just looking at another common coin. We are diving deep into one of the most enduring series in American numismatics. A coin that first appeared in 1938 and has gone through war years, design transformations, metal shortages, and artistic shifts, yet has never left circulation. This series has survived world conflicts, economic struggles, political changes, and technological revolutions, making it not just a means of commerce, but a living artifact of American identity. And the 2014 issue stands at a fascinating crossroads in this history because it reflects the modern minting standards while still carrying the legacy of the classic Jefferson design that began nearly 8 decades earlier. To truly appreciate the 2014 Jefferson nickel, we must begin with Thomas Jefferson himself, the third President of the United States, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, a man of immense intellect, vision, and contradictions. His inclusion on the 5-cent piece was not accidental. For Jefferson's role in shaping the early republic, particularly his support for expanding the economy and his association with the Louisiana Purchase, made him a fitting figure to grace American coinage. The nickel that bears his face has always been more than currency. It has been a tribute to the ideals of liberty, expansion, and democratic governance that Jefferson represented, even if history has also remembered him as a man of complexities who lived with contradictions between his words and his actions. The 2014 Jefferson nickel continues the design introduced in 2006, when the mint unveiled the forward-facing portrait created by artist Jamie Franke as part of the Westward Journey nickel series transition. Unlike the earlier left-facing bust of Jefferson used since 1938, the new image presents a more lifelike portrait, showing Jefferson looking directly at the viewer with the word liberty inscribed in his own handwriting, a powerful reminder that the man whose vision helped establish America continues to look into our future. This design shift symbolized a more personal and direct connection between Jefferson and the people who use the coin in everyday life. Turning to the reverse, the 2014 nickel retains the classic image of Monticello Jefferson's Virginia home, designed by Felix Schlag, who won the original 1938 design competition. This neoclassical building is not only a representation of Jefferson's architectural genius, but also a symbol of his Enlightenment ideals. It has been carefully rendered in great detail, and even in 2014, the mint's precision allows us to see the sharp columns and dome that stand as a testament to Jefferson's legacy in both politics and design. But the story of the 2014 Jefferson nickel is not only about the man or the design, it is also about the minting process, the history of coinage in the 21st century, and the role of the United States Mint in producing billions of coins for commerce. That year, the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mint struck Jefferson nickels in vast numbers, each mint leaving its distinct mark with the PD or S below the date. For collectors, these mint marks are not mere letters, they are clues to origin, history, and sometimes rarity. The San Francisco nickels of 2014 were struck in proof quality with mirrored fields and frosted devices, a stark contrast to the ordinary business strikes of Philadelphia and Denver that passed through millions of hands. Understanding the 2014 nickel also requires a journey into metallurgy, since the coin is composed of a copper-nickel alloy, a blend of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This combination gives the coin its distinctive color, durability, and resistance to wear, but it also reflects the economic decisions of the government because metal prices fluctuate and the mint must constantly balance cost with practicality. Over the years, proposals have surfaced to change the composition of the nickel to cheaper alternatives, but in 2014, the traditional copper nickel alloy remained unchanged, thus continuing a long legacy that stretched back to the mid-20th century. Now step back and ask, why does the 2014 Jefferson nickel matter? After all, billions of nickels circulate every year, and most are spent without notice. The answer lies in context, for every coin tells a story about the time in which it was made. The 2014 nickel came at a moment when America was deep into the 21st century, dealing with global challenges, economic recovery after the financial crisis, and rapid technological transformation. Yet the coin struck that year still carried the face of a man born in 1743, still carried his vision of liberty, still carried the image of Monticello that had been designed nearly 80 years earlier. This continuity ties us to our past, while grounding us in the present. For collectors, the 2014 Jefferson nickel offers a variety of paths. Some seek out uncirculated examples with sharp details and luster, others pursue proof strikes with their mirrored brilliance. Some search for errors and varieties, such as double dies, off-center strikes, or other minting mishaps that make a common coin suddenly rare and valuable. These details can elevate a nickel worth 5 cents in commerce to one worth hundreds of dollars in a numismatic auction, making every pocket change discovery a potential treasure hunt. 2014 Jefferson nickel therefore stands at the intersection of history, art, economics, and collecting. It is a coin that embodies the ideals of Thomas Jefferson, the artistry of the United States Mint, and the ongoing fascination of numismatics. When we examine it closely, we see not just a piece of metal, but a living history book that continues to circulate in our pockets, connecting us to the story of America from the Revolutionary era through the 21st century. And when we tell this story in full detail, we can fill hours, because every aspect, from Jefferson's political philosophy to the minting technology to the collecting market, adds a new chapter to this endless tale of how a small coin can hold the weight of a nation's history. In the vast and fascinating history of American coinage, every coin tells a story not just of its metal and minting, but of the people, the nation, and the time in which it was struck. And when we turn our attention to the Jefferson nickel of 2011, we uncover a chapter that connects modern America with the legacy of one of its most brilliant founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, author of the Declaration of Independence, and a man whose ideals and vision for the nation have echoed through centuries. The Jefferson Nickel series, which began in 1938, replaced the Buffalo nickel, and it was intended to celebrate Jefferson's contribution to American history and progress. With its long run, the Jefferson nickel has witnessed changes in design, metal composition, and symbolism that reflect the changing values and needs of the nation. And the year 2011 marked a period when the nickel carried not only a renewed look, but also a deeper meaning tied to America's ongoing journey. The design history of the Jefferson nickel is a story in itself, beginning with the original portrait designed by Felix Schlag in 1938. Schlag's work featured Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his Virginia home, Monticello, on the reverse. This design remained largely unchanged for decades and became one of the most familiar coins in circulation. However, by the early 2000s, the United States Mint sought to refresh the design to honor Jefferson in a more dynamic and historically accurate way. In 2004 and 2005, the Westward Journey Nickel series brought temporary changes that depicted scenes from the Lewis and Clark expedition and a forward-facing image of Jefferson. This series bridged the old and the new while reminding Americans of exploration, expansion, and national identity. Then in 2006, the nickel settled into a new long-term design, featuring a forward-facing portrait of Jefferson with a more lifelike and approachable expression. Designed by Jamie Franke, this was a major shift from the static profile of the past. Jefferson now looked directly at the viewer, suggesting openness, vision, and leadership, a fitting portrayal for a modern America that still looked to Jefferson for inspiration. By 2011, this design had fully taken hold, and the coins minted that year carried both historical weight and a modern connection. To understand the importance of the 2011 Jefferson nickel, we must place it in context, both numismatic and historical. Jefferson's face staring forward on this coin represents not only an artistic choice, but a philosophical one. Jefferson was a man of enlightenment, a believer in the power of the human mind, democracy, education, and the pursuit of progress. The forward-facing design, in essence, brings Jefferson into conversation with the modern American, holding the coin reminding citizens of his timeless ideals. Furthermore, the reverse continued to feature Monticello, the neoclassical home that Jefferson designed and built himself, a symbol of intellect, innovation, and architecture. Monticello stands as a monument not just to one man, but to the Enlightenment principles that shaped America, and every 2011 nickel in circulation was a tiny token of this larger story. From a collector's perspective, the 2011 Jefferson nickel has its own fascinating layers. Although the coin is modern and struck in large numbers, its varieties, mintmarks, and condition play a role in determining value. Coins minted in Philadelphia bear no mintmark, while those from Denver display a D mintmark, and those from San Francisco, proof issue marked with S. Proof nickels struck for collectors often carry exceptional detail and finish, making them highly sought after. The 2011 nickels were struck in the standard copper-nickel alloy composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a formula in place since 1866, with only brief changes during World War II. The continuation of this metal composition reflects both tradition and the balance of durability and cost efficiency for everyday commerce. While the intrinsic metal value may not exceed the face value of the coin, the historical and collectible aspects elevate certain specimens into prized possessions. For numismatists, the year 2011 also falls within a fascinating period of American coinage. More broadly, this was a time when the U.S. Mint was actively experimenting with new designs and other denominations, from the state quarters program to the presidential dollars. The Mint was reminding the American people of their history through circulating currency. The Jefferson nickel of 2011 stood as part of this movement, not a redesign that year, but a reaffirmation of Jefferson's role in American life and heritage. When people spent a nickel in 2011, they were touching not only a piece of metal, but a piece of American identity rooted in Jefferson's philosophy of liberty, self-government, and knowledge. To appreciate how this coin fits into Jefferson's larger legacy, we must look deeper into his life. Jefferson was not only the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, but also a diplomat, governor, vice president, president, and the founder of the University of Virginia. He envisioned a nation of farmers and free citizens, empowered by education and protected from tyranny. His belief in limited government, individual rights, and expansion through peaceful means shaped the trajectory of the young republic, though his legacy is also complicated by the fact that he was a slaveholder who wrestled with contradictions between ideals and reality. The decision to place Jefferson on the nickel in 1938 was intended to honor his monumental contributions while also linking his image with the denomination used by every citizen on a daily basis. By the time the 2011 nickel was struck, Jefferson's forward-facing portrait seemed to capture the enduring relevance of his ideas, looking not backward, but directly into the future. Collectors often ask what makes a 2011 Jefferson nickel valuable, and while most circulated examples are worth only face value, certain conditions, mint errors, and proof issues can raise the worth dramatically. For example, high-grade nickels graded by professional services can bring in premiums, especially in mint state 67 or higher. Error coins such as off-center strikes, double dies, or planchet flaws also attract serious attention among numismatists. Proof nickels with mirror-like finishes and sharp details from the San Francisco Mint are always collectible, and in pristine condition, they can command significant value. The hunt for such coins reflects the larger human fascination with rarity, quality, and historical significance. But beyond collector Value. The Jefferson nickel of 2011 holds cultural meaning. It reminds us that history is alive, not locked away in textbooks, but circulating in our hands. Every time someone used a nickel in 2011 or today, they were unknowingly participating in a chain that stretches back through Jefferson's lifetime, through the mint's history, through the many hands that shaped American commerce, from market stalls to factories to schools. This small coin connects daily life with the grand sweep of national identity. And this is why exploring its history in detail is not just a matter of numismatics, but of understanding America itself. The Jefferson nickel of 2011 stands as a continuation of tradition, a symbol of Jefferson's enduring influence, and a reminder that even the smallest coins carry the weight of history. From its origins in the late 1930s, through its redesigns in the 2000s, and into its modern strikes, it tells a story of artistry, philosophy, commerce, and democracy. When you hold one, you are holding more than 5 cents. You are holding the face of a man who dreamed of a republic of free citizens, educated and engaged, and the home that he built as a monument to those ideals. Monticello expanded into a full exploration. We could delve into the details of minting technology, how the dies were engraved, how planchets were prepared and struck, how proof coins were polished and preserved. We could examine the economic climate of 2011, the lingering effects of the financial crisis, how coins still played a role in commerce despite the rise of digital payments, and how the mint continued to adapt. We could explore Jefferson's philosophy more deeply, his writings on liberty, education, and governance, and how they resonate with modern America. We could analyze how coin collectors view modern nickels compared to older series, and how market trends shift over time with interest in errors, high grades, and complete sets. All of these dimensions would fill hours of storytelling, and each one would reveal a new layer of understanding. 2011 Jefferson nickel, therefore, is not just a coin. It is a gateway into history, philosophy, economics, art, and the ongoing story of the American people. And it serves as a reminder that even in the smallest details, like the change in your pocket, there is a world of meaning waiting to be discovered. And when explored in full depth, the Jefferson nickel of 2011 can indeed sustain a long and fascinating journey through history, lasting hours of storytelling and capturing the imagination of anyone who seeks to understand the past through the coins that carry it forward. The year 1995 marked an important moment in American coinage and numismatic history, because it was not just another year in the long production run of the Lincoln cent, but one that stood out for collectors, historians, and casual observers alike. The Lincoln penny has been one of the most iconic pieces of American coinage since its introduction in 1909, when it replaced the Indian head cent and featured the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner as a way to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. Over the decades, this penny has gone through changes in composition, minting technology, and design details, while still retaining its role as the most widely circulated coin in the United States. By 1995, the Lincoln penny had already passed through multiple eras of change, from the early bronze issues to the steel cents of 1943 during World War II, to the shift in composition in 1982, when the traditional copper alloy was abandoned for a cheaper copper-plated zinc format. The 1995 penny comes to us as part of the copper-plated zinc era, meaning that each coin was composed of a zinc core with a thin layer of copper making up its outer surface. The United States Mint began using this composition in 1982 as a cost-saving measure, because the rising price of copper made it too expensive to continue striking 1-cent coins with the old 95% copper alloy. For collectors, this change made the penny less substantial physically and also raised concerns about long-term durability, but from a purely economic standpoint, it was a necessary move. By 1995, the new composition was well established, and millions upon millions of these pennies were being struck at multiple mints, including Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, and for special collector issues, the West Point Mintoni. Of the reasons the 1995 penny has become so fascinating is because of the special double die obverse variety discovered that year. In coinage history, a double die occurs when During the die creation process, the design elements are impressed twice at slightly different angles or positions, leading to a coin with doubled lettering or imagery. On the 1995 Lincoln cent, the double die obverse became one of the most dramatic and easily visible doubled dies of modern coinage. Collectors quickly noticed that the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," as well as the date 1995 itself, showed clear doubling visible without magnification. For years before, the hobby had seen doubled dies such as the famous 1955 Lincoln cent, which became legendary. But in 1995, the mint accidentally created a modern version that electrified a new generation of collectors. Discovery of this variety sparked excitement across the coin collecting community because it was rare enough to be valuable yet common enough that dedicated searchers could still find examples in circulation. Newspapers and coin magazines of the time reported on it, drawing the attention of the public and adding a spark of popularity to the Lincoln cent series. This event brought renewed attention to the penny and gave collectors a sense that the age of great varieties had not ended in the 1950s or 1960 seconds, but was alive in the 1990s. Outside of the doubled die obverse variety, the 1995 penny also has significance in terms of mint history. Philadelphia struck over 6 billion pennies that year. Denver added billions more, and San Francisco produced proof cents for collectors. The sheer scale of production demonstrates the continued reliance on the penny in everyday American commerce. Even though by 1995 inflation had eroded its practical purchasing power dramatically, the penny was still an essential part of transactions used in vending machines, change drawers, and coin rolls in banks. The production numbers reflected the mint's effort to keep up with circulation demands, but also highlighted the ongoing debate about whether the penny should remain in production at all. The design of the 1995 penny remained consistent with Victor David Brenner's original portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been introduced in 1959 to commemorate the sesquicentennial of Lincoln's birth and the 150th anniversary of his birth. The Lincoln Memorial reverse carried a special symbolism, as it not only depicted an iconic national monument, but also cleverly included a small image of the Lincoln statue within the memorial, making it the only United States coin to feature the same individual on both the obverse and reverse. The design, by Frank Gasparo, had become familiar to generations of Americans, and by 1995, it was deeply ingrained in the national consciousness. From a numismatic standpoint, collectors today often look back at the 1995 penny as a transitional coin bridging the era of the classic Lincoln Memorial cent with the later changes that would come in 2009 when the Lincoln Bicentennial cents were issued, and then in 2010 when the Union Shield design replaced the memorial. But within its own time, the 1995 penny became a centerpiece of collecting because of that double die obverse, and because it gave hobbyists a reason to check their pocket change. Again, in an era when many assumed that all modern coins were too mass-produced to yield treasures in terms of value, the vast majority of 1995 pennies, whether struck at Philadelphia or Denver, carry only face value in circulated condition because so many billions were made. However, the 1995 double die obverse cent can command significant premiums, especially in high mint state grades. Examples certified by professional grading services such as PCGs or NGC often sell for hundreds of dollars, and in the very finest conditions can exceed $1,000. This makes the 1995 double die obverse one of the most valuable modern Lincoln cents and a staple of every variety collector's wish list. Even beyond that, the proof issues from San Francisco remain desirable for typesets and proof collections, and in pristine condition with perfect grades, can also attract strong interest. What makes the 1995 Lincoln penny especially intriguing from a historical perspective is how it captures multiple layers of American history in one small coin. Represents the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln, whose face has graced the cent for more than a century, and who remains one of the most admired figures in United States history. Represents the technological challenges of minting coins by the billions, and the occasional mistakes that result in collectible varieties. It represents the economic realities of a nation where inflation had rendered the cent nearly obsolete in buying power. Yet tradition and habit kept it alive. It represents the passion of collectors who even in the 1990s were still scouring their change jars and bankrolls in search of something extraordinary. The story of the 1995 penny is therefore not just about metal and minting presses, but about people, about the ordinary Americans who use these coins every day, about the collectors who cherish them, about the mint employees who struggled to maintain quality control amid massive production quotas, and about the historians who look back and see in a simple coin the reflection of a larger cultural and economic narrative. The 1995 penny is a reminder that even the smallest denomination can carry weighty stories when one considers the penny in the broader sweep of American coinage history. The 1995 example shows us how tradition, innovation, accident, and public fascination can intersect in unexpected ways. The Lincoln cent may only be worth 1 cent on paper, but in 1995 it was worth much more. In terms of history symbolism and collector excitement, its story is one of continuity and change, of honoring the past, while also creating new chapters for the future, and of reminding us that in our pockets, we carry not just coins, but fragments of history. Imagine you are holding a small copper-colored coin in your hand, a coin that at first glance seems like nothing more than an ordinary piece of change passed along in grocery stores, tucked away in piggy banks, and dropped carelessly into pockets. But behind that humble penny lies a story that stretches back more than a century, a story of American history, economics, art, politics, and national identity. And today, we are diving into the world of the Lincoln penny of 1988, a coin that many overlook. Yet it carries with it an extraordinary connection to both the past and the future of American coinage. Now, to understand the 1988 Lincoln penny, we need to trace the full story of the Lincoln cent from its origin in 1909, when the United States Mint decided to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln with the introduction of the first American coin to bear the likeness of a real historical figure. Before this moment, US coins were adorned with allegorical figures such as Lady Liberty, symbolizing ideals rather than individuals. But the decision to place Lincoln on the cent was revolutionary. It reflected a turning point in American culture in which the nation embraced honoring its heroes directly. And there was perhaps no greater figure than the 16th president, the man who guided the country through its most perilous chapter, the Civil War, and preserved the Union. The design itself was entrusted to Victor David Brenner, a talented sculptor, whose portrait of Lincoln was based on a photograph taken by Matthew Brady. His work became iconic, with Lincoln's profile facing right, showing a calm yet determined expression, and this design has remained the longest-running portrait on any US coin, unchanged for decades, though modified slightly over the years. The reverse side in 1909 displayed 2 wheat stalks on either side, a nod to agriculture and prosperity, giving rise to the name wheat penny. This design was struck until 1958, and then in 1959, to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the reverse was changed to the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, and it is this memorial reverse that appears on the 1988 penny. 1988 Lincoln cent belongs to a fascinating transitional period in US coinage, because just a few years earlier, in 1982, the composition of the penny had changed drastically. Prior to 1982, the coin was made of 95% copper, giving it real intrinsic value. But rising copper prices meant that by the early 1980s, it cost more to produce a penny than the coin was worth, so the mint shifted to a copper-plated zinc composition, making the coin 97.5% zinc, with only a thin layer of copper giving it the familiar color. This means that every 1988 Lincoln cent you hold is essentially a zinc coin beneath its surface. A dramatic example of how economics can reshape even the smallest objects of daily life. When we examine the 1988 Lincoln penny in detail, we discover the artistry, the symbolism, and even the technical elements that make it a rich piece of numismatic study. The obverse features the iconic portrait of Lincoln surrounded By the inscriptions Liberty, the year of issue 1988, and the national motto In God, We Trust, the reverse presents the Lincoln Memorial with such fine detail that if you look closely with magnification you can actually see the tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a coin within a coin symbolizing the lasting legacy of the president himself. Above the memorial the word United States of America stretches proudly across the field with the phrase E pluribus unum inscribed. Just beneath the reminder that out of many states comes one unified nation. The 1988 penny also raises questions of rarity and value. While billions were minted across Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, there are varieties and errors that have captured the attention of collectors. The most famous of these is the 1988 double diab verse, where slight doubling in the lettering or date creates a valuable collectible. Another important variety involves transitional errors, in which 1988 cents struck with the reverse of 1989 have been discovered. These mix-ups occurred because of die preparation at the mint, and they remain highly prized by numismatists, with values far exceeding the coin's face value. In a simple mint mark difference, such as a strong strike from Denver or a proof from San Francisco, can make a significant difference in desirability and price among collectors. But beyond minting errors and collector value, the 1988 Lincoln penny speaks to a broader theme in American history. It was minted during the final year of Ronald Reagan's presidency, a time of economic growth, political transformation, and the winding down of the Cold War. The coin thus becomes a silent witness to an era of optimism and change, just as the Lincoln cent itself has been a constant witness to American history across generations, from the Great Depression to World War II, from the Civil Rights Movement to the space age, from the turn of the millennium to the digital age. Every Lincoln penny, including the 1988 issue, carries with it the silent memory of the hands it passed through, the lives it touched, and the economy it fueled. Collectors often say that every coin tells a story, and the 1988 penny tells one of continuity and transition. It reflects the continuity of Lincoln's presence on our currency for nearly 8 decades by that point, and it represents the transition in materials, artistry, and national identity that coins embody. It also illustrates the way ordinary objects can become extraordinary when placed in historical context. For many people, the penny is an annoyance, too small to matter, but for historians and numismatists it is a key to unlocking the story of a nation's values, its economic shifts, and its artistic achievements. As we unfold the detailed history of the 1988 Lincoln penny, we can explore the evolution of minting technology, from hand engraving to machine die cutting, the role of the U.S. mint facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco in producing billions of coins, the process of striking proof coins for collectors, and the constant challenge of balancing cost efficiency with artistry. We can dive into the world of coin grading and how condition from good to uncirculated to mint state dramatically affects value. We can trace the journey of pennies through circulation, learning how long they last in the economy before wearing down and being pulled from circulation. We can analyze the metal composition and how the shift from copper to zinc changed the durability and appearance of the cent over time. We can also step back further and understand how the Lincoln penny of 1988 fits into the larger arc of American coinage policy, why the cent has survived debates about its usefulness, despite calls to eliminate it, how it reflects a cultural attachment to Lincoln as a symbol of unity and integrity, and how it connects everyday Americans to their shared history with every transaction. The Lincoln penny, whether from 1909 or 1988 or today, continues to serve as both a practical tool of commerce and a miniature monument to one of the nation's greatest leaders. So, when you hold a 1988 Lincoln penny, you are not just holding a piece of zinc plated in copper, you are holding a story that stretches from the Civil War to the Cold War, from the fields of Illinois where Lincoln once walked to the marble steps of the Lincoln Memorial etched into the coin's reverse. You are holding a chapter of America's ongoing story, a chapter worth exploring in depth, and that is exactly what we will do as we journey through 2 full hours of history, economics, artistry, and culture to uncover the complete story of the 1988 Lincoln penny. The story of the 1998 Lincoln penny is far more than just the tale of a small copper-plated coin. It is a story that connects more than a century of American history, politics, art, economics, and even human memory. When you hold a 1998 Lincoln cent in your hand, you are not just holding a piece of metal, you are holding a continuation of a design that dates back to 1909, when the United States Mint first introduced the Lincoln cent to honor the centennial birth year of the 16th president. Abraham Lincoln. The Lincoln penny has the distinction of being the longest-running design in American coinage history, and its survival across generations reflects both tradition and change. 1998 penny sits at an important crossroads in that tradition. At that time, the coin was produced at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with the Philadelphia Mint striking coins without a mint mark, the Denver Mint placing the small d beneath the date, and San Francisco producing proof coins with an S mint mark. What makes the 1998 penny so interesting is not only its place in the long sequence of Lincoln cents, but also its connection to the monumental design change that was about to occur only 1 year later in 1999, with the release of the 50-state quarters program, which would set the stage for new energy and excitement in coin collecting, while the penny itself would retain its Lincoln Memorial reverse through 2008. Before being replaced in 2009 with designs marking Lincoln's bicentennial. Obverse of the 1998 penny continues to display the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner more than 80 years earlier. It shows Lincoln facing right with the word liberty to the left and the motto "In God We Trust" above, while the date 1998 rests to the right. The simplicity of this design speaks to the timelessness of Lincoln as a national symbol, but by the 1990s, the coin had already undergone subtle changes in die preparation. Sharper details were often replaced by slightly softer strikes due to mass production pressures and the increasing use of automated high-speed minting process. The reverse of the 1998 cent features the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., a design created by Frank Gasparo, first introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The memorial reverse was notable for its attempt to merge architecture with coinage, and on close inspection with magnification you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, making it one of the smallest presidential portraits ever placed on a circulating coin. The reverse also includes the inscriptions "United States of America" and "E Pluribus Unum" above, with the denomination 1 cent at the bottom. This design had by 1998 been in use for nearly 40 years and was familiar to generations of Americans. From a metallurgical standpoint, the 1998 penny continued the modern composition of 975% zinc with only a thin plating of pure copper. This composition had been introduced in 1982 due to the rising cost of copper. Before that, pennies had been struck in a primarily copper alloy for well over a century. The change to copper-plated zinc significantly altered the feel, weight, and even the sound of the coin. Collectors often remark that post-1982 pennies corrode more easily, showing bubbling or discoloration when the thin copper layer wears through, exposing the reactive zinc core. So while the 1998 penny looks on the surface much like pennies from decades earlier, it is in fact a very different coin underneath. Production numbers in 1998 were very high, with billions of Lincoln cents struck at both Philadelphia and Denver, reflecting the enormous demand for small change in the American economy of the late 1990s. The San Francisco proof cents, on the other hand, were produced in far smaller numbers, but with extraordinary care. These proof coins featured mirror-like fields and frosted details designed for collectors rather than circulation. Many of these were sold directly to collectors in proof sets, making them especially appealing today for those who want pristine examples of the 1998 cent. Historical context of 1998 also adds to the story. The United States was in the midst of a strong economy known as the dot-com boom. Technological innovation was transforming daily life, and yet the penny remained a constant in the pockets and purses of Americans. Just as it had for generations, discussions about the usefulness of the penny were already emerging. Some argued that inflation had reduced its buying power to the point of obsolescence, while others insisted on keeping it as a cultural and symbolic piece of American life. In this environment, the 1998 penny serves as a reminder of continuity during rapid change. Coins from 1998 add another fascinating dimension. Some examples show striking mistakes, like off-center strikes, broad strikes, die clashes, or double dies. Such errors, while rare, become extremely valuable to collectors because they highlight the human and mechanical imperfections within the otherwise highly automated minting process. Every error coin tells a story about the machinery, the dies, and the moment in which that piece of metal did not conform to perfection, and collectors of Lincoln cents know that hunting for these rare varieties can transform an ordinary 1-cent coin into a treasure worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Beyond errors, there are also subtle varieties that interest specialists, such as differences in the proof dies or unusual plating issues, since the copper plating process occasionally produced coins with missing or uneven copper layers, creating a unique surface appearance. These oddities, though sometimes dismissed as minting defects, are increasingly seen as collectible by those who appreciate the full spectrum of coinage history. When you step back and view the 1998 penny in the full arc of numismatic history, it occupies a place near the end of the memorial reverse era, represents the last full decade before the sweeping changes of 2009, when the bicentennial Lincoln cents, and later the Union Shield reverse, would appear. This gives the 1998 cent a kind of transitional significance. It is not rare in the sense of mintage numbers, but it is historically rich because it stands at the twilight of one design tradition and the dawn of another for collectors. Today, the value of a 1998 penny depends on condition and variety. Circulated examples generally hold only face value, but uncirculated coins, especially those graded at high levels by professional grading services, can fetch several dollars. Proof examples in pristine condition may be worth even more, and error coins, as noted, can reach dramatically higher prices. Yet beyond monetary value, what makes the 1998 Lincoln cent truly significant is its role as a tangible artifact of American culture, an object that millions of people touched in their daily lives while living through the unique social and technological transformations of the late 1990s. To tell the story of the 1998 penny is to tell the story of the enduring Lincoln cent, a coin that has survived wars, depressions, economic transformations, and changing technologies. It is to explore how a small everyday object carries within it layers of history, artistry, and meaning stretching back over a century, from the vision of Victor David Brenner in 1909 to the minting presses of 1998. And beyond, the 1998 penny is more than money. It is a historical document struck in metal.